All right. Some of the same faces are going to be in this panel, and I want to thank the previous panel, some of whom are our partners on this project, and others are our partners in general, for introducing many of the things that we will be able to blow through more quickly now. I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully this will work. All right. Do you guys see a pretty red and white slide?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So if you were in the last presentation, you heard a lot of the intro to this project. I will remind folks, this is not the first time that we have, come on, we're gonna advance. The first time that we have presented on this project. So a reminder of what we are. This is a 2-year, actually a 2.5-year grant from Arcadia at this point. And you've heard our tagline many times, supporting the growth of open access through institutional repositories by, making them better and more attractive. I like to point out what we're not doing. And I think the second bullet here is really relevant to this community as well. We're really trying to make something that doesn't pull from Hyrax, but in terms of human resources, but is contributing back to it, and also reusing things from there. So I will not belabor that. Just to remind folks what our original project deliverables are. For this project, this is the order in which we sort of put them into the proposal. I realize I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Ellen Ramsey, and I am a white female wearing a hand-knitted scarf today. University of Virginia, and I'm the project PI. This is from our original proposal. I know you guys have seen this many times during our presentations, which we've been doing. But I think the thing to take away from this is the order currently in which we are addressing these particular deliverables, where we are today, and then the rest of this presentation. Ilkay Holt from British Library is going to talk about what we need in terms of input to prioritize and really do what the community will find useful and what potential Hyku adopters will find useful going forward. So if we look at this list, the order that we're actually doing them in right now is more reflected on, sorry, this is such an eye chart, but our roadmap, which we try to keep updated as frequently as possible, and we do post about it on the Advancing Hyku blog. Probably not often enough, but pretty often, at least quarterly. So currently, if we look at these, they're all mapped to what we call work packages. And I would guess those are kind of sprint-like entities. The folks from Ubiquity can talk a little bit more about how that works if there's interest in that. But nothing out of the ordinary in terms of how we're handling can see currently, each of these has a work package. And so, the architecture piece is really going throughout the project. We've been implementing that, or Ubiquity has been implementing that as we attack each of the work packages. And there's a report that if you haven't read about the architecture recommendations from British Library based on their experience with Sarah Gould's project and that original implementation, lots of lessons learned there. So we've been very, very grateful for that. And I will put the link in the chat, or one of my partners can. And then metrics actually doesn't show up. The first phase of metrics doesn't show up on this slide because it's supposed to be finished. And we just had a demo of it at our monthly meeting in October. So the auto population piece, again, yes, tune in later to Chris Coldvard's talk about DOIs. There's also an ORCiD component of that, as is the author ID and profile sync. That's both about reporting in terms of what authors have done with a specific author has done with the repository, and also what they can find out by logging in. We are partnering with the Hyku Analytics project on that Hyrax Analytics, because we wanted to divide and conquer, although it is a little bit complicated going back and forth with Hyku and Hyrax. And I will let folks who are better versed in that conversation address that. The work package 5 is an interesting one because we're looking at preservation pathways. We have a partnership with Academic Preservation Trust, but we don't want that to be the only way that preservation can happen. We're trying to make a reusable component to do that work so that Hyku adopters can choose what works for them. For example, British Library uses something different than what University of Virginia does. And then Brian mentioned the full text display and the annotation work that is later in the project. But again, this is what we're planning at the moment, and I don't want to belabor this too much because this is what this presentation is about, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk about what we're currently doing, and then Ilkay to talk about where we need your feedback. So thanks.
Okay, this is Brian again. If you didn't hear me on the last presentation, I'm the CEO of Ubiquity, and I'm getting better at my descriptions. I'm a white 40s male with short blonde hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt. And so the current work we're mainly working on is feeding back a lot of the key features developed previously by Ubiquity that are already available open source, but we're feeding them back and aligning them with the main code base. And a very important point here that Ellen really raises that, yeah, Hyrax is integral to Hyku. So a lot of the things we're feeding back are going to Hyku, but a lot are also going into Hyrax specifically. So it's a very mixed model, really. So we've already started doing a lot of alignment work. As I've listed the GitHub pull requests here. We've fed back Google Scholar meta tags for deposit forms. We fed back a lot of the work for enabling metadata fields to be added quickly and easily. Chris, as I mentioned earlier, is speaking this afternoon about the DOI minting and data site alignment aspect of things. And that's a good example of work that we developed in Hyku, but then we redeveloped at more of the Hyrax level and have fed it back as a Hyrax plugin. And we've also fed back already the fixes to make sure that the embargoes and leases expire correctly in the system. And we're currently working on the API, getting that fully functional, and we'll be feeding that back before the end of October. So there's a lot of feedback work, and we're probably about halfway through. So a lot of features are coming back in to strengthen the platform, and we're making sure that it's fully aligned with the latest versions. And then we're also working right now a lot on the metrics package, as Ellen mentioned. We've spent a lot of time with the UX team designing the system, getting feedback from stakeholders, and what we've decided to do in the end is to port over an open source metric system that we developed as part of a European Union grant called Hermeos, which provides full standard and altmetrics for the platform, very much the type of metrics you would see on a professional publisher's website. And the goal really is to make researchers feel like their work is being treated seriously and that we're able to provide good impact metrics about it. And then right now we're sort of in the process of preparing in-depth interviews for the remaining alignment work, and some of the interviews for that will be mentioned later in this presentation. Ellen?
I'm going to turn it over to Ilkay.
Yeah, if we just move the slide.
Oh, sorry. Forgot my job. Typical.
No. Hi, everyone. This is Ilkay. This is my first Samvera Connect event. So I'm so happy that I have been meeting new faces, even if it is virtually, over the last 2 weeks, well, including this week. So I am Advancing Hyku manager at British Library, and I joined the team over the summer. Yeah, again, weird. I never actually met, my colleagues, in the project, but weirdly, I feel like I know them actually for quite a long time. So my main role is to lead the community engagement activities and to ensure Samvera community's needs are reflected in our project deliverables. And we're not only talking about British Library or Virginia University Libraries, instances here. So I also forgot actually to describe myself. I'm a woman. I'm in my early 40s. I'm wearing actually black like most of the time, and I'm having a bad hair day as usual. So this is all I can say. Okay, so over the summer, following the completion of this project team, one of the first things that I was involved into the creation of this communication plan. I just wanted to tap onto this before I move into the need and on the community feedback. We prepared this plan to define our stakeholders properly, how and when we want to actually deliver this information regarding the project, and how to engage and the relevant communities effectively in the process of development, Hyku developments. The plan is already available on the project site. Under the outputs page, you can actually see the full thing if you are interested in. As a newbie in the community, from what I observed, Samvera community actually is quite a well-connected community. But this plan actually has been useful, especially for me, to see how we position ourselves with this project, how we ensure the project offers a value for the whole community. So we use this kind of events, Samvera Connect kind of events, and within and beyond the Samvera community as a main channel to communicate about the project. So we publish quarterly updates, like Ellen mentioned, on our site again. And before I move, as said, we highly value engaging the relevant communities in these developments. To do that, we are actively engaging with the community. We are in regular contact with the Samvera Hyku interest group in the monthly meetings, as mentioned in the previous session. What else? We also we exchange some information with the partners. We also try to hear from them on the existing Hyku instances. We have ongoing collaborations, and Ellen and Brian already actually gave a good coverage on those. So I can move to the next slide. So while we are talking about these great ambitious goals, in the end, what we all actually want to aim is to build something for users, for different types of users. This is not something new to most of us, but I think it is worth to differentiate different needs for different groups. That's why I just wanted to underline that within the project we identified 6 main personas, and so to serve and user stories are defined very appropriate in the context of these relevant work packages. So these user stories are beneficial to understand what real life requirements of stakeholders are addressed in the Advancing Hyku project. So one of the first personas you see here is the authors, researchers who submits their work to the repository. The second one is second persona is the repository manager who technically manages the repository. The third one is the visitor, the end users, who uses the repository content. The fourth one is the decision makers who governs the institutions where the repository is owned. The fifth one is the the funder who funds the research deposited in the repositories, and the last one is the data providers. The institutions provide metadata to the hosted repository services. Moving to the next slide, I wanted to spend a little bit more time and close up to our work packages. Some of it actually has already been explained, so I don't want to repeat myself. But this slide is to just explain how we link our repository features to user stories. Ellen already explained where these work packages are in our timelines and in the roadmap. So that has been, as explained again, that has been a great major developments by Ubiquity colleagues for British Libraries shared research repository, which feeds directly into the project. And this development has been done on the Hyku version 1, and most of the code, as mentioned, before is not in the core Hyku code base yet, but they are already working on this. So Ubiquity colleagues now working on this alignment of features with Hyku to upgrade the latest version of Hyku to get the new features and improvements and give them back to the community. Therefore, they will be aligned with the Samvera community standards. So this work falls into the work package 0. You see on the second part of the image, actually, you see the full list of features to be aligned in the work package 0. We have a long list there. So, but before we move further in the project, this bunch of work will be completed, although some of the latter actually items are already in progress. Also, I should mention that these user stories are not complete. These are just some exemplar for your information. I think the details of other work packages already been mentioned. Maybe I should just use my time a bit more efficiently and just move on, because I was just trying. I was thinking that I can give you a bit more detail on the work packages, but I think it has been covered a bit. I can move to the next slide. Here, I wanted to just, this is something all, similar to all of you, sorry, familiar to most of you, I'm sure. But what makes these, features, feature developments meaningful are the user stories to describe the need for each of them. So that's why we made a list of, our user stories to link, to each of these, story to the features. Again, this is a combination of who needs what and why question, basically. And in the next slide, what I wanted to say is that, this is the way actually we design these features within the project. We link each of these features to a user story, where there's a defined, type of user, and all of them actually are linked to the work packages to guide us through the project. Again, this, colorful charts here, this is basically to catch your eye, because when you go to the community input document, it's not as colorful as this. But my hope is that you will just wonder what this look like, and you might go and actually have a look afterwards. Again, these user stories are just exemplars, but just to give you an idea, like what we are trying to link to each. So this is where we turn our faces to you. We would like to have your input and tell us what you think about these feature developments, about the existing user stories, and help us to reduce the gap between your needs, your priorities, and our future plans for the project. If you move to the next slide, this doesn't say much, but what I wanted to say here, that at the end of this project, whatever actually we manage to achieve in the end, we want to make sure that they are useful to the others. The other repositories actually willing to adopt them in their own repositories, and they are useful to them. So I think we can also link that to the roadmap alignments, in the overall Samvera community activities. What we want is that we are all working on different roadmaps. The best thing is that what is more beneficial for the wider community is the main question, which already mentioned in the earlier session. In my next slide, I think, yes, this is where we actually call for your input. So we have a lot to do in the next year. We have a long list of repository features, but we need your inputs to prioritize these features in a very short survey, I promise. We would like to find out which features are the most essential or the least desirable, so that we can have them on a spectrum. We also invite you to browse the user stories, make comments. You see the user stories in a less attractive format here. So we want you to actually make comments where you think that these user stories doesn't reflect your experience. The storyboard is useful to understand these features better, basically, because when you go to the survey, you will only see the list of features. So it would be great if you could just look up to both of these documents. One thing I should definitely mention here is that we are aware of that we can't accommodate every need, and we have to stay within the project scope, and we also have to be realistic. But this will give us an opportunity to reflect on and incorporate your feedback into the project plan where possible. So I would like to share the links with you, and I think already Brian shared those, or Ellen. So we will be sending these links by an email, and we'll also share it on the Slack. So thanks for listening. I think this is it for me.
Couldn't find the unmute button. Hi, thank you. And so we would be happy to take questions. I think we have a good number of minutes, maybe 6, 7. Abigail, how many minutes do we have?
We do. We have 6 or 7 minutes. Yes. we have one question that came in on Slack that I think there's a lot of interest in. The question is, I definitely like to hear more about the ways in which it's complicated to work with Hyku and Hyrax together. I'm wondering whether we need to document better development workflows for Hyku devs to work with Hyrax and Samvera core packages, or if it's something else. So a little bit of a side note there, but
yeah, that was my kind of throwaway comment. And I think where I'm coming from with that is keeping track of things is hard. Right? Who's doing what on which project can be challenging. The Hyku roadmap project, the combined roadmap, has been really, really helpful. And knowing what we're pulling that's in Hyrax to work in Hyku, that helps. I'm from the perspective of like, what does the thing do and where do I go to get that? Definitely from a repository manager's perspective, that's where I'm coming from. I know that, Brian can probably talk to that better, or even some of the folks who I know are on this call who have done some of the development work. Just keeping the two aligned in terms of where our priorities are, where Hyrax's priorities are. It's just a lot to keep up with. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that it's one of the things about the two different paths. And I know Hyku is built on Hyrax, and I get that. I understand that. But not being one of the people who's doing the technical development, knowing what to ask for and what already exists can be, I don't want to ask for things that we already have or that we're not going to get. Is that a fair response? I'll turn it over to Brian and Ilkay.
I can speak to it just a little bit. I mean, this was something we had to learn, being new in the Samvera community and new to the Hyku platform. And I think one of the key things is you have, if you're developing on Hyku, you need to be involved in the broader Hyrax community as well. So you need to be involved in all the various working groups and meetings to know what's going on. And that's something we've started to do a lot more as we've matured into our development of the product. It benefits us because we don't have to redo things that are already in Hyrax or do them in inefficient ways. And it means, yeah, we do things in the correct way. A big benefit for us was also bringing on Chris Colvard onto our team, who'd been working for a long time within the Hyrax community, and he was able to really tie us into the rest of it. But you can't really avoid it. You just have to be involved in the broader community in order to be sure that things are being done correctly. But once again, that's one reason we chose to work on Samvera, because there is a very strong community, and there are, the community is a very good resource for making sure that this is done properly.
The original poster thanks you for that thorough response. That was very helpful. We do have a couple more minutes. I'm just checking Slack. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. If anyone would like to add something. I will say there in the Slack, there was also a question about the REST API and a clarification that it is for Hyku. And then there's some discussion around porting that to Hyrax. So I don't think there's an outstanding question there, but if you're interested in the REST API, there is some back and forth in the Slack about that.
Do folks have any questions about the feature prioritization or concerns about our request for that input? That's really important to us, and we have had a lot of opportunities to talk with concurrent projects, ones that are similar to ours, but not necessarily to potential adopters. We'd also appreciate feedback on are we reaching the right audience with the survey? And we haven't publicized it broadly yet, but we will. Help with that if you know of institutions that are thinking about adopting or shopping. I think we think we know, but that would be helpful as well. So I'll just put that out there. So there's a comment about having the right venues for ongoing participation at the community level. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And on my list is definitely to connect with our new community manager. That's an excellent recommendation, Tamsin. So here's us saying, Heather, help, or we actually, Heather, we would like to talk to you more at length, and as soon as you close off the fire hose.
All right, I'm not seeing any other open questions at the moment. Heather will reach out. Excellent. Thank you.
Figured she would.
All right, well, we are just about at time. So I think with that, we will wrap up this portion of the program. Thank you all so much. That was a really excellent, excellent presentation. Thank you.